Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag College Show Week 9. I am your host, Andrew, joined by Alex, as always. Welcome into the show. Alex, another wild week last weekend of American football, of college ball. Lots of great results, lots of good games. I bet you're buzzing to talk about some of them as well.
Yeah. Again, a week of, well, I say upsets. They sort of were upsets because they weren't the teams that we were picking and expecting them to win in the big games. But I know we'll get into those in a bit more detail in a bit. There's one that surprised me from earlier this week's slate, though, an upset. Did you see?
I was going to say that. I was going to open with the Liberty losing, unbeaten, going loose to Kennesaw State. A bit of an odd one, really.
Well, yeah, because Kennesaw State, they've been a good team. They've only had like a football program since, I don't know, like 2005 or something. Maybe even more recently than that. I can't remember the date, but only recently. But they done really well in like the FCS and won multiple championships. They made the jump this year to the FBS, and we've struggled.
Well, they haven't won a game, have they?
They've been winless for the season, and they come up against the conference leaders, Liberty, and beat them. So
who were projected to go unbeaten through the year before the season started? But Liberty will go unbeaten through the year. People were saying the schedule's not great, but if they go unbeaten, should they be given a shot at the playoffs? They were one of them that people were saying Boise should be it, Liberty should be it, and they were kind of the names that were rumbling. So it's a big shock, this game.
Yeah, it is, and then it opens the door a bit for teams like Boise to be more likely to get into the playoff. So,
I think how the season started and we've seen them all play. I think Boise can actually challenge and maybe win a game in the playoffs. So definitely the right side of the fence to go on. They were my team before the season started as well to qualify. So
yeah.
Do you want, before we get into the games, do you want to talk about your USC team? We briefly spoke about them, but this is now. Well, you've lost 4, and you've had a lead in all 4 of those games by 7 or more, and then the last 3 in a row, you've had 14-point leads and blew it. What's going on, mate?
Yeah. I mean, if I look at it positively, I can say they've combined 4 games. They've only lost by about 15 total points or something like that. But yeah, they just keep chucking away the leads. They get out on top, like I say, consecutive 14-point leads and chuck them away. Again, I know Lincoln Riley always argues that it comes down to a few misplays, but this is a team that should be competing. I was listening to some other podcasts this week, and they were comparing what USC is now under Lincoln Riley to the way Steve Sarkisian has spent a few years building up that Texas team that we'll get onto in a minute into quite a strong contender. Whereas USC, they should be in a similar sort of position, really, with the time he's had there. But no, they can't seem to win it. I'll argue that the games that they have lost have been, well, mostly 3 of them have been away games over the other side of the country in Michigan and Minnesota, but it's the one against Maryland. Maryland hadn't even won a game before that, had they? And they couldn't beat us. Yeah. I don't know. It's a team that has improved so much on defense to keep them in games, and the offense started off looking really good at the start of the season, but it's not quite clicking. This decision making and the play calling to close out the game isn't there, and there's rumblings that Lincoln Riley's seat might be a bit warmer than it was at the start of the season.
I genuinely can't see that. I think I still think he's the right guy. You can't argue that offensively he can scheme some absolutely genius things. He's great. The defense has improved. I think it's a big learning curve for him to go from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, and it's a completely different style of football. So I think you have to give him a year in there and say, do you know what? You learned something new there, didn't you? You learned it's not about outscoring the opposition; it's about winning in the trenches. And I think you say now you need to go to the NIL and transfer portal and really solid up your O-line and D-line, and then see what he can do. And if he learns from it, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, if maybe he needs to follow the model of Oregon, who have made that transition quite well, obviously, and they did do a lot of work in on the O-line to shore that up a bit. But the rest of the Pac-12 teams that come to the Big Ten have struggled. Washington have been a bit up and down. UCLA have just been rubbish.
Well, the amount of players that Washington lost to the NFL, so it was ever likely. I think they're doing quite well.
Yeah. They're doing okay. Obviously, they're transitioning with the new head coach with Jed Fish. But yeah, I just thought they'd be. I thought they wouldn't be 3-4. I thought they'd be maybe be like,
especially after beating LSU in the first game.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, I won't let you cry on the screen, so we'll move on to some of the other games that we covered last week. So the first one up was Alabama at Tennessee. This game ended 17-24 in Tennessee's favor. It looks like Alabama don't like going to Tennessee because this is now 2 losses they've had because Vanderbilt obviously in Tennessee as well. They now slipped to 5-2. Tennessee now up to 6-1. How did you feel about the game? You know, we both said that we were on the Alabama side of this for the victory. We thought that Milroe would be far superior and the offense would be too good. Tennessee's defense, yes, very good. Nico pulled them through at the end. He showed that he could do it against a big team. What's your take on this game?
Yeah, I mean, Nico came good when it mattered to get him out for the win. It helped that they had a really big game from Dylan Sampson, the running back.
Having a lovely season, isn't he?
Yeah. So they could lean on him. What do you have? 139 yards and 2 scores. And I think that might have been the difference between comparing that to what Alabama did on the ground, because their leading rusher, Jam Miller, he had 42 yards. But yeah, it was not the easiest environment to go into to Knoxville and to beat the Vols, but it's a game that you would have expected Alabama to win previously. They were starting to see some of the shortcomings of this team under Kalen DeBoer, both on maybe not so much on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side of the ball as well. They were getting a bit beaten up, weren't they, by the Tennessee offense? So yeah, I was disappointed. I thought Alabama were going to be better in this game. I really did. But it also now raises big question marks on them as potential playoff contenders as well, because I think now two losses within the conference almost, well, doesn't necessarily knock them out of it, but they're gonna struggle to keep up with the other teams that we're going to talk about in a bit later on.
I suppose they've still, some of them have all still got to play each other, which obviously puts them in contention there, but it definitely leaves them in a position where they've got to win out, because I don't think you can lose 3 and get in. I think there'll be far too many other teams, one within the SEC, that will finish with only 2 losses. And again, when you look at the strength of some of the teams in the likes of the Big Ten that are obviously, still got some unbeaten teams in there that might only lose 1, you got to say to yourself, you beat Georgia, but you've lost 3 games. You can't get in over some of the others. So they've got to win out. So I think anybody who's playing Bama now, that's not going to be a nice time to play them, because you're going to see every game's a playoff game for them now.
But we thought that after the Vanderbilt game as well, didn't we? That they come back. And then, isn't it? Well, yeah, and then South Carolina caused some problems, and now we've just had this Tennessee game, and yeah, it's going to be tough sledding for for the time.
Well, we did say this was a hard stretch for them. They had to play Tennessee, then Missouri, then LSU. So this is a hard stretch for them where they can't lose any more games.
I think next week's going to be an interesting one against Missouri because they're a team that started to stumble a bit but came back again strong last week with the win.
Well, I think we'll cover that one slightly. I think when we've got enough time, we'll have a quick chat.
Right.
Were you surprised that with how good Jalen Milroe's been through the start of the season, put himself up there to be a good candidate for the draft? Were you shocked at the turnovers that he did? The mistakes were there. Did that shock you in such a big game?
Yeah and no. I mean, if we look back to last year in the Rose Bowl, we had some plays like that and struggled a bit under the spotlight of the. So that was a really big game. I mean, this is a big game because it's a huge rivalry game, and I can't. And then Nick Saban used to say something about the Tennessee game about how big that was their main rivalry game. So there's a lot riding on it, and now I think he probably felt the pressure, especially in that stadium, facing that defense, and maybe it got to him a bit, or maybe it just was some general mistakes, and the Tennessee defense were just playing really well that game.
Yeah, with how good that Tennessee defense is, and the fact that they can lean on that run game, which has been so productive this season. Like I say, 6-1 now. They've only really got Georgia left to play. They've got Vanderbilt at the end of the season, but I would have thought they'd beat them, although they have upset some teams. It's looking at they might only lose 2. Do you think now you can see Tennessee potentially being a force in the playoffs if they get there with how good that defense and run game is? Are they legit, or are you still?
I still don't know. Yeah, I'm very much a fence sitter with Tennessee.
Oh,
I kind of.
He still hasn't seen enough from them yet.
No.
Well, we'll move on to the next game. I'm still hot on Tennessee. We'll still move on to the next game. It was Georgia at Texas. I watched this game. This was the one I watched live. Ended 30-15 in Georgia's favor. Now both 6-1. We all thought Texas was this complete roster. We said it was good absolutely everywhere, and Georgia just had a good defense. But Georgia's good defense wasn't just good defense. It was excellent defense. What's your take on this game?
Yeah, Texas got beat up a bit in this one, didn't they?
There's a couple of takes on this one, but you go on.
Yeah, I mean, you struggled in this one, especially early on, and they couldn't get anything going because they were behind. Well, they didn't score in the first half, did they? And just before the half, Sarkisian chose to put Arch Manning in for a bit, and he didn't get much going either. And then that's quite a questionable decision about how that affects, because they brought Ewers back in for the second half. And I listened to some interviews afterwards, and he apparently didn't know that he was going to be going back in the game until half time. So that must have messed with his head a bit, I think, because in his eyes, he was benched at the end of that first half, and so that's going to sap his confidence and go back in and win it now. Yeah,
we'll stick on that topic just for a minute. Now, I haven't seen this interview, so you're one up on me because I was going to ask you. I felt like it was the way it went when he subbed in Arch. I was like, right, that's it. Quinn Ewers isn't getting it going. He's seen Arch get it done the last few weeks prior. He's going to roll with him, see if he can get it done. And this might be Quinn Ewers done. This might be Arch Manning's team for the rest of the season. And then when he swapped them back, I was a little bit like, oh, maybe he just brought him off to have a chat with him, calm him down, get his head straight, and then then get him back in once he'd sort of leveled him out. But to have that conversation of going, no, you're done, sort of thing, and he didn't know, that's. I
don't think he did have that conversation. I think he just put Manning in, and I don't think it was explained to Ewers until halftime that actually he's going back in. But in terms of your view, then, so maybe giving him a break to calm him down, but I can't see how that is a benefit for the quarterback. by bringing him out of the game, you essentially, whatever you say to him, you're telling him, oh, you've lost confidence in him. You don't think he can get the job done. And it's just one of those ones that, yeah, unless you're going to stick with the other guy. Yeah.
You can argue in this game that
Yeah.
both offenses weren't good. The score is 30-15, and equally Carson Beck was not good. He had 3 interceptions. They didn't move the ball particularly well. It's just the fact that their defense was so good that, when you take a look at like the first 3 scores, they started within Texas's half in all 3 of those possessions. So they only really had to drive the ball a few yards, and they played old school Georgia football, hard defense, run game. I wasn't overly impressed by the offense of the Georgia Bulldogs particularly. I thought Texas's defense also played well, to keep them to field goals when they were starting at like the 23, 28, the 30 every single time. I thought they held up quite well. So a bit of a weird one. I thought it was 2 really, really poor offenses, but we knew Georgia's offense wasn't great anyway, and 2 great defenses, and Georgia's defense was just insane. We thought this before the season, but the amount of pressure they're getting, because that O-line of Texas is got a couple of NFL starters in it. So, how did you feel about Georgia? Do you feel like that 30 is what you saw from them, or are you on the same side as me that their offense wasn't great either?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't brilliant. I mean, Beck's been one of those quarterbacks that's been. He seems like quite inconsistent. He's not. Well, I say he's inconsistent, but he still gets it through to win games. Obviously, they leaned a lot more on Trevor Etienne this game, and it's good that they had him to lean on. But yeah, it wasn't a great performance of him. Obviously, got 3 turnovers, but Texas didn't capitalize on that enough. But yeah, essentially was the defense that won this game. Defense and field position, really.
Old school Georgia football.
Yeah.
Defense and run game. It's what we've seen from them before. I think 6-1 now might give them a bit of confidence. They've knocked off the number 1 seed. We've seen Georgia win national championships with quarterbacks that aren't as good as Beck. Stetson Bennett was hardly the greatest quarterback to be around. So they've got to have some fuel back in the tank now, Georgia. What do you see them finishing strongly now? Do you think this win gives them the confidence to go? Because we all thought we were out on them and they were going to slip behind Texas and maybe some others in the SEC. Yeah,
I think they should do. I mean, they definitely stepped up since that loss to Alabama. Then they've come out quite strong. Because who have they got now? I mean, they've still
got to play Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee.
I could see them beating all of them. Really,
the Ole Miss game I think the Ole Miss one might throw up something for them. That Ole Miss offense is very, very good, but the Ole Miss defense has got some talent on it as well. Some real good talent. So I think that one might be a close game. That one might be a good one.
It could be a close game, but I think they can probably close out a close game like that. I think Tennessee will be the tricky one, and then they've got a fairly easy running with Massachusetts and Georgia Tech to close it out. So I think I don't think they're gonna lose again this season. I'm always very wrong, haven't I?
2 tough games in the middle there. Now, as for Texas, do you think this is just a case of they were the number 1 seed, they knew they were better, and they just didn't prepare for Georgia? They thought, Georgia aren't as good this year. We're the number 1. We're better than them. We'll roll in. We'll win this, and that'll be great. Do you think it was a lack of preparation, or do you think there is some holes now creeping in, and maybe they weren't this fantastic team that we all thought?
I think they're still a good team. But they just didn't look as tough as Georgia in this game. Throughout the season, I know I've been saying before that I thought that Texas was quite a complete-looking team, but yeah. But no, the offense especially looked a bit holy in this one. But sometimes you get games like that. Sometimes where things don't click and you can't get things going. it may just be a blip. It may be that the SEC teams are starting to figure them out a bit now. But you'll see, because I was surprised obviously how strongly they did start the season, coming into the conference as a new team in the SEC. But yeah, I think they're still going to be up there.
Definitely, they haven't got anybody left to play, so
no.
they
So they should win out as well. But
so yeah,
it's not a big because I really did think that they were one of, if not the best team in the conference. But yeah, obviously not.
I mean, you've only got the week prior to look at when they played Oklahoma. Now, I know we've said plenty of times Oklahoma are in a bit of disarray, but they looked big, they looked strong, they looked powerful in that game. So to then Georgia go, oh, they didn't look like that. I think it was lack of preparation. I really do. I think it was they were at home. I think they overlooked what Kirby Smart and Georgia might be, and they got caught out. I think that's literally it.
And I think they need to make sure that they don't get caught out again, because there's a couple of tricksy games they got coming. They got to play away at Arkansas and then close the season out at Texas A&M.
It was probably, if anything, it was probably a good time for this to happen to Texas. Losing one in the season isn't going to damage them too much, and to have that loss and be beat by Georgia, I think now it opens their eyes and they can see the holes and they can look at the tape and they can see what went wrong for the first time this season. They can have a look at what doesn't work. So I think this probably happened to them at the best time, and they'll maybe get better and stronger and be more dangerous in the playoffs from this loss.
That's if they get to the playoffs.
Come on.
It might be being too pessimistic, but I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SEC teams currently sat at 6-1, and then some of them. Well, there's 2 teams that we're going to talk about in a bit that's undefeated in the conference, and the rest of them got the one loss within the conference. So if they slip up against one of the other conference teams, then
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. Yeah. But, I mean, if the Texas A&M at the end of the season,
that's going to be a good one.
That's going to be a massive game.
Texas A&M are rolling at the minute. We like what they're doing, so that could be really interesting. And it's Texas versus Texas, so all might be out the window of who's performing the best. Now, the last one that we wanted to talk about last week, we wanted to give them a bit of the limelight. We wanted to showcase them a little bit because they were still unbeaten. They currently still are unbeaten because they won 38-35 against UCF. Bit closer than I thought it was going to be. They were behind at halftime, and then they got together, they rallied, and they come through for the victory. They're now 7-0. One of the teams that's not done this in history. There's now 5 or 6 of them that are just breaking history from like the 30s and 40s. So nice win for them.
Yeah, well, you say nice win. They should have won that a lot more easily than they did against the UCF team. I mean, it was right up to the line. What was the score? 38-35?
Yeah, 38-35, and they were down at half-time. So they're down by 7 at half-time.
Yeah, and they made it look a lot harder than they needed to.
I didn't think that. I thought the last 3 results from UCF were not the team that they were, because they got the 3 victories at the start. They looked good, and then they lost one, and then they had the quarterback issue. So this is the first time we've properly had a full game from Brown at quarterback. I know he didn't do a lot in terms of throwing the ball, but with his legs was fantastic. Did a lot of damage and that, but it must have been tough for Iowa to prepare to play a team that they didn't know who the quarterback was going to be fully and what you were going to get from him. So I don't know. I think their record was slightly worse than what they play at. And it's good. I think it's good for Iowa to play from behind and come back and win. I think that bodes well for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to get through those sort of games. That's the typical sort of trap game, isn't it? When you underestimate your opponent, but yeah, they need to be better at stopping the run. Obviously, because they gave out over 300 yards on the ground in that game. But like you said, they weren't maybe prepared enough for Brown at quarterback and what he could do with his legs. But then the UCF running back Harvey had nearly 200 yards himself as well. So they need to shore up that on the run defense. Beck, the quarterback for Iowa State, didn't have the greatest of games either. He had a couple of interceptions. Well, one was a pick six and one was nearly a pick six because that old dropping the ball before you cross the line, didn't he?
Yeah,
celebrating a bit too early. I can't remember which player it was in UCF, but yeah, they still scored on that drive because he dropped it at the one. But yeah, I think maybe they've taken away a few learning points in this game to carry on forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they didn't all play badly. Noel.
We said they've been taking it in turns, haven't they? Higgins and Noel have both been taking it in turns to have big games, and 153 yards. It's definitely a good game, wasn't it?
Yeah. So they're still up there as contenders for the Big 12 with old BYU, who are undefeated as well. Who looked a bit more convincing this week, I think, than Iowa State.
Yeah, they do look quite good. I think it's key to note, we mentioned him last week as well for Iowa State. The other player that I noticed was having a really good season so far was Jontez Williams. I said he'd had 3 interceptions in 3 consecutive games. He added another one. He got another interception twice. I now 4-4 for him. So he looks like a nice prospect to keep an eye on for the future.
Yeah, I think so. He was key to... Well, he's key to their defense and what they've been doing in the past few games. So yeah, if he continues this streak of having a pick every game, then they help him a lot. Yeah.
Well, we'll move on to some big games for Week 9. That's why we're here. There was the slate's not as incredible as it's been in the past few weeks, but there's definitely a lot of good games in this week. You know, we again had lots to choose from. We've locked in 3, and then I think we've got 2 that we were umming and ahhing about as well that are quite interesting games to keep an eye on. But we'll start with what I think is the big one, and that's LSU at Texas A&M. That's the number 8 seed against the 14. Texas A&M are actually the favourites in this one, -1 favourite, so very short favourites. But what are your thoughts on this one? Are you siding with Texas A&M, or do you love what you've seen from Garrett Nussmeier so far?
I don't know which one I'm going in this one. I mean, LSU are a team. They're both teams that have come off opening week losses and have just gradually improved as the season has gone on. I mean, you mentioned Nussmeier's been getting much. He's had 5 300-yard games.
He's coming back from behind. He's playing well in clutch times. He's producing the goods. Yeah.
He is. Like the ranked LSU are now ranked like 8th nationally in the passing game. They're averaging 322 yards a game. They're turning into quite a high-powered passing offense. I think Nussmeier, he leads the SEC as well at the moment with 18 touchdowns, and he's got his QBR is like 82. So he's looking great, but I think the key and what is the most improved part of the LSU team is their defense, and they're getting much better under Blake Baker. Because was it last week they played Arkansas? They only gave up 10 points to them. They're ranked 3rd in pressure rate at the moment and 7th in sacks, so they're going to be right up on. Is Wegman back now, isn't it? Yeah, so I think they're gonna give them some problems. But saying that, Texas A&M are the same as well. Their offense is rolling at times. Wegman was back last week, wasn't he, and put up a big game against Missouri. They've got a very strong running game now, Texas A&M, and they have shown that they've got the ability to slow the game down quite a bit, which may work in their favour if they can lean on the run a bit more, control the clock, and keep Nussmeier and that offense off the field. If they can get that going against this strong LSU offense, I think they might have more than a fighting chance. And they've got, who's their running back?
Le'Veon Moss.
Le'Veon Moss, that's the one.
Yeah, looks real good.
Yeah. So he's had 5 scores in the last 2 games. So I don't know. This is a game where both teams are like looking really good on both sides of the ball at the moment. So it could go either way. It's in Austin, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Field. So that gives A&M the slight advantage. But I don't know. These are teams that can both compete. And I don't know, who do you think looks? You mentioned Nussmeier as being clutch in closing out games. Do you think he's got the goods that can?
Yeah, I mean,
more than Wegman.
Looking at it, yeah, I've not been overly impressed by Wigman so far this season. I think they do, he's had nice games. I don't think he's set the world alight. I don't think he's been as good as what people thought he might be. I think they are leaning on Le'Veon Moss quite a lot. He is a very, very talented guy. So, when you look at LSU, their O-line's got 2 first rounders in there, two probably, definitely a top 10 pick in there with Will Campbell. So O-line's great. Nussmeier, I really, really like. I think that, as you said, before the season started, game 1, USC versus LSU, we said both these defenses were shocking last year. Yeah. So have they improved? And we saw little improvements, but as the season's gone on, LSU's front 7, that D-line has improved massively. It has got loads better. I think some guys have really, really stepped up in terms of putting pressure on and stopping the run and things like that. So I think I've seen a lot of improvement from LSU. Well, definitely seen some improvement in Texas A&M from the start, but I really like LSU. I loved them last week, didn't I? They were my bet to have. They were -1.5. I couldn't believe it. I said, put your mortgage on it, and they didn't do me wrong. So really, I'm going to take the underdog in this. I think LSU, to me, is playing the better football at the moment, all round. Whereas Texas A&M, I think they do lean on that run game a bit more. So if LSU can stop that, I think they've got the tools to push through and get the win in this one. Do like LSU to qualify for the playoffs as well, which I didn't think I'd be saying at the start of the year. I thought they were going to be just on the outside looking in. So, Garrett Nussmeier, I'm loving him more each week. I don't know whether I've become a bit now biased towards him because obviously being a Giants fan, I'm going, who am I looking at of these quarterbacks? Because we're not going to be picking in the top at the minute. We're pick 9. So, we're not going to be picking in the top 5. So if we win a couple more, we might need to wait till the second round. He might be there in the second round. So I'm like, maybe he's the guy for us. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on Nussmeier.
Yeah, I think he is definitely one to keep an eye. His stock is definitely rising as the season goes on. So he might climb up the certain teams' draft boards. So he might
be gone in the first round. He might go back into the first round. People might be moving up to get him. So could be an interesting one.
But in terms of the game, though, my heart is leaning towards LSU. The A&M have been good against the pass defense, though. And they've
got a good defense. They have
got a very good defense, and they've been holding opponents only like 54% completion rate on average. But is Nussmeier good enough to overcome that? And he probably is. So I think I'm leaning towards LSU as well.
Oh, I swear you just thought, I convince you. It's the way I talk about things. Actually, I steer towards what you're saying.
You talk a good game. I think, this is the one I'm most unsure about, I think. Oh, sorry, I've just been interrupted by a child.
That's fine.
You're supposed to be in bed. So, what?
Go Trojans.
Go. But I No, LSU. I'm in LSU. I think they're gonna just edge this one.
Our next game we're going to look at is Notre Dame at Navy. This is the 12 seed against the 24 seed. Navy are 6-0. This is one of these teams I've mentioned. It's the first time since God knows when that they've managed to start the season 6-0. 6-1 for Notre Dame. Now, looking at this one, this is what the 12-team playoff was for. I think people have mentioned will Navy, will Army, will these sorts of teams be able to qualify for the playoffs? And we're now looking at a scenario where people are now talking, saying, yes, this could be possible. Now, this is their first big test to see if they are good enough, because Notre Dame were a team that we locked in as the 5th seed, and they were getting in, and everything was happy days. What's your thoughts on Navy, being a shot, and then what's your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, a shot for the playoffs. I think
just been talked about being in it, not actually qualifying for it. What it means for these smaller programs.
Oh, what it actually means. That'd be huge for a team like Navy, because they're not a team that are ever considered for the playoffs, really. I mean, their biggest game of the year is the Army Navy game, which is sort of played at the end or outside of the season. But yeah, that would be massive for one of the service schools to actually get in. Whether or not they can, I don't know, because there's teams like Tulane and Memphis that I think are going to come up and overtake them as we get towards the end of the season. And they've got to play Tulane and obviously Notre Dame in this game. But yeah, they beat Memphis, didn't they? That was an upset one. And they beat Memphis in a quite high-scoring game. And this is they've become quite a surprisingly high-scoring team. Because
they're not the old school version that we've seen from the academy programs. They're playing some proper American football in this team. They look good, and they're putting points up. So
yeah, because they've got Blake Horvath at quarterback, and he seems to be having a bit of a stormer of a season, doesn't he? This is Navy teams averaging like 44 points a game, which is, I think, sort of unprecedented for them. And
they're bar the Memphis game, they're shutting people out on the other side as well, aren't they?
Yeah, the defense is looking good. Their offense is looking good. Horvath is looking like a proper threat, passing and rushing. He's got 10 touchdowns on both sides, passing and running. But they're coming up against Notre Dame now, which is, I think, they've got a good defense.
Well, yeah, we said this at the start of the season when we covered them early doors. Yeah. They had an excellent defense, real good defense, but it's had a lot of injuries. Their O-line's had a lot of injuries. Their D-line's had a lot of injuries. We've kind of now worked out that they're only a running team because Riley Leonard is not really getting it done in the passing game. No. He is with his legs, but not really in the passing game. Now, I think they're a very, very strong team. They are the 12 seed. They're the heavy favourites. They're 13-point favourites. But is there too many injuries on that team, or are they just too much of a good program regardless?
I think they probably are, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than when last year when they met in Dublin and it was 42-3 to Notre Dame. I don't know. I think this Navy team should give them some problems. We've seen Notre Dame slip up against Northern Illinois earlier in the season, a team that they obviously underestimated, and they can't underestimate this Navy team because they proved to be too good to be underestimated. They're scoring points, they're putting up yards. I think they're tied for the best red zone offense in the country at the moment. So if Notre Dame lets them get down the field, then they could be in trouble. And like I said, the Notre Dame passing game hasn't been brilliant. They've had to lean on the run. And if Navy can shut that down or at least slow it up, then we could be in for quite a close game.
So I think we're both saying that maybe Navy cover the spread and they don't lose by 13.
No.
But is
Well,
there any chance of an upset here? Would you put your money on an upset?
no, because I'm quite conservative in that sort of respect. But I think there's a small chance. There is a chance, and I think. What if Navy have got the confidence coming in? They're on this run. They're on this streak. They've got it all to lose, or all to nothing to lose.
All to
really.
play for.
All to play for, nothing to lose. Is it a neutral venue? Quite a bit. They're playing at MetLife.
MetLife, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this game's often played at a neutral venue. I think they played it all around the country because they meet every year, don't they? Notre Dame and Navy. But yeah, it's certainly got upset potential, and we've seen plenty of upsets already this year. So yeah, why not? Why not peg Navy for the upset?
I'd like to put my stamp on. There could be an upset. I think it's because, like a lot of America and that's travelled over here. A lot of people don't like Notre Dame, do they? They're kind of a hated team.
No. Well, yeah, they've got a lot of rivals. I mean, the USC fan, I'm not their biggest fan either. So I'm rooting for Navy to knock them off.
So I think a lot of us are locking in the upset, just with a bit of hope behind it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they definitely cover the spread. I think they can do that. So.
All right. So you're picking Notre Dame though, yeah?
No, I'm gonna pick Navy. I'm gonna pick Navy. You can go Notre Dame if you want. I can't pick them.
I mean, yeah, the sensible thing would be to pick Notre Dame. So I will.
Oh, good lad. There we go. I haven't convinced you this time.
But I'm hoping that I'm wrong, which I usually am.
I can't believe I managed to nearly talk you into that one as well.
I know, and just looking at the stats and things, yeah, they really got a shot. But yeah, I think Notre Dame win.
And then the last game we're going to cover is Illinois at Oregon. Oregon now the number 1 seed, and the number 1 seed for a very good reason, because not only did they beat Ohio, the following week after, there was no hangover from victory of that. They went and did the business again and beat a poor Purdue team, but did it in style. They're 12.5-point favorites in this one, but are we overlooking Illinois slightly here? I think they're very underrated. They've gone, there's a lot of teams that are hyped and overrated. I think this team's underrated slightly. They're the 20th seed, but they've played well so far this season. What's your take on this game?
I think, I don't think you can underestimate this Illinois team. They've shown that they can hang with the rest of them. Last week against Michigan, that was a convincing win. They looked good in that game, both in play. And just a quick mention about their uniform, because I'm a massive uniform nerd. What did you think? The throwbacks with the spray painted leather helmets. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that? I liked it. It looked really good. I like the concept. Really good. Yeah, I thought the helmets did look a bit weird. Actually, were on the field, but I liked the concept, and it also sort of harkens back to one of the Chicago Bears throwbacks as well. That because I think the Bears pinched that uniform from Illinois. Anyway, I'll just park my uni nerd musings now, because I thought it did look good. Again, I'm going to go up against an Oregon team that's got a different kit each week, so I'm not sure what they're wearing this week. That might swing it for me about who's going to be favourite, depending on what.
Well, when you own your Nike, you tend to get good kits, don't you?
Well, yeah, a different one each week, but some of them I like more than others. Anyway, I digress. Illinois have looked pretty good. They looked strong against Michigan.
Their only loss was to Penn State. It was a close game. I say close game. It was 21-7. All the other games they've won fairly comfortably. Beat Kansas comfortably. Beat Nebraska comfortably.
They have. They've got a big journey. It's in Oregon, in Eugene. They've got I saw a post on Twitter this week about the Illinois equipment truck was leaving on Tuesday to do the 2,000-mile trek out there. So it's going to be tough sledding going out, and we can see that may have an effect on teams. We saw Ohio State may have hindered them a bit in that loss. They're going up against the number 1 ranked team. The last time they played the number 1 ranked team was in 2007, when that was Ohio State, and they beat them 28-21. So maybe they'll be looking to repeat that. But I think also that could add to the level of pressure, knowing that they're playing away in what is known to be quite a loud stadium against the number 1 ranked team. So, and yeah, I think that's going to have more weight on Illinois than it does in Oregon. Because I think Dan Lanning was asked this week about what he thought about being a number 1 ranked team, and his response was, "Who cares? We're going to win." So yeah. Offensively, Illinois have been all right. They've got Luke Altmaier.
They're kind of solid everywhere, aren't they? They play hard. They play physical. They're a solid team. They look good in all areas, but they're not great in all areas like Oregon are.
No, but they're good, and they could be good enough. I mean, Luke Altmaier, he's got a 15-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is the best in the Power 4. So he's not really turning the ball over. So if they keep things safe, maybe. But I don't know. Oregon is looking at. I mean, they absolutely beat down on Purdue last week, 35-0. Dylan Gabriel's just looking stronger and stronger each week. He's on like a 77% completion percentage at the moment. So again, he's not really turning over the ball. He's looking consistent. Yeah, I think Illinois, as good as they have been defensively, will struggle to contain this Oregon offense that is now up to full strength, and they've got Trayshawn Holden back as well. Because they suspended him. I think it was an internal suspension. They sat him last week against Purdue after he spat on one of the Ohio State players. So they got one of their top receivers back. Yeah. Unless they can do something to really disrupt that Oregon offense, then I don't know.
I don't think they will. I think Oregon are a different class. Which I hate to say with what division they're in, but they look good. They look like they're rolling. They look like they've got their O-line completely sorted now. It looks strong now. I think the only question to ask really is, will Oregon cover the 21.5 point spread?
Is it 21.5?
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Okay. Probably.
I think that... I don't think Illinois are going to get hammered.
You don't?
No, I think 21.5 is a lot, isn't it? It's a lot of points.
Yeah.
And Illinois, we've just said they're solid. They've been playing well. I think that Oregon win, and they win comfortably, but maybe not by 21.5.
No, probably by about 14 or something. It could be more than one score difference, and I think it probably will be a couple of scores. Unfortunately, because I'd love to see Illinois win this game now and win that. But yeah, I think Oregon are they're ranked number 1 for a reason now, because they're proving they can beat the big teams like Ohio State, and then they can do the business against the not so strong teams like Purdue. Yeah. And
teams that have sat in that number 1 spot haven't done so well.
No, they've not stayed there for too long, all the number 1 seeds, have they? But I don't know. I think Dan Lanning's a wily enough coach. Yeah, that he now he's gotten to the top. I think he's the sort of coach that can accommodate whatever team they're playing each week, and can probably keep them at or near the top for the rest of the season.
Now, quickly before we run out of time, 2 more games. We didn't pick them to be covered completely, but definitely wants to watch. Mizzou at Alabama. I think that's a really interesting matchup. 21 seed against a 15 seed. Mizzou struggled. They've had injuries. quarterback went and had an MRI during the game, didn't he? And came back and played. So he's a
Yeah.
bit beat up. Bama struggling, must win. I reckon they're dangerous to play. I think that's a Bama win. What's your take on that game?
Yeah. I mean, Mizzou looked better and stronger last week, bouncing back. So Cook did get beat up a bit and had to be checked out.
I don't think he's fully fit.
Even if he's not fully fit, no, I think it's a game that
it's him and Burden, and if that outside of that, I can't see anything from Missouri. So if he is beat up and he's not getting that connection with Burden, I think Bama will win it comfortably.
But what if he does? What if he does click this week against an Alabama defense that has been iffy?
Scary.
Teams that they should have been stronger against. Like, I don't know if they. Yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and Tennessee, they've all found ways to put up points on them. So I don't know if they can lean on Bernard or just find another way to get on going on them. I mean, realistically, Alabama should win this. And they probably will.
I think they would. Like I said, I think they're. I wouldn't want to play Bama now because they've got to win out. Every game's a playoff game for them, so dangerous time to play.
It is. So I would pick Bama in this game.
And then the last one, Texas at Vanderbilt, 5th seed against 25 seed. Vanderbilt have beat Bama. They beat Kentucky. They had a close game against Missouri. Can they upset another team, or is this their string of upsetting people over?
No, I think Texas are going to do them over. Yeah, I think they're going to want to show what they're about. I can't. Is it two? Is it in?
It's in Tennessee. Yeah, it's at Vanderbilt. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. But still, is it? I think it will be again, like with the Alabama game, it will be a stadium that's mostly burnt orange or whatever it is, the color that Texas play in, whatever you want to call it. I think Texas is gonna have a bit of a get right game, make themselves feel better by knocking the stuffing out of Vanderbilt.
Now, there's one topic we've run out of time, so we can't talk about it. So we might talk about it next week, and it relates to one of the games that we covered at the start of the show. I think we need to next week talk about the refs overturning a pass interference call.
In the Texas.
I'm not sure how we missed it when we were talking about it. Obviously, that's not a thing in college football. You can't. There's no reviews, no challenges, no anything like that on these plays. Obviously, the Texas fans started throwing bottles and things onto the pitch, and then the game got a bit out of hand, and the refs got together, saw it on the jumbotron, and reversed the call, which is not a thing. So I think next week we'll hold it for now. You can have a quick chat, talk about. We need to talk about what this means for going forward. Whether other teams will do the same thing, whether they need to bring a rule in. So I give you a week to think about a rule that you think you could bring in. I've got one already that might help this, because this could get out of hand going forward, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas, whoever was in control of their video board, knew what they were doing in playing that play repeatedly over and getting the crowd riled up. But whatever the crowd are doing, that shouldn't have an influence on the referee's decision, really. It should be down to them and what they've seen and what they've judged. And yeah, it's mad that they completely overturned the call on the field. There we go. Yeah, I'll think about that one. I'll think of what that
if something's not done.
Sorry?
If something's not done, more and more teams are just going to act like that and do it again. And then it's going to put players and officials at risk during the games, isn't it?
Possibly, yeah. You know what these college crowds can get like.
Yeah, they're all young kids, aren't they? They're not adults and families at games, are they? So
well, there is
a lot of them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. There's. I mean, but college fans of all ages can be a bit over-invested in their
Passionate.
teams.
Passionate,
There you go. Yeah. It's
Well,
great stuff at college games.
well, that's all we've got time for. If your team's playing this week, good luck for you. But we will be back again same time next week. But till then, guys, keep it with the franchise tag.